Hey guys, what's up? This is Diego here at Cinemageddon Reviews. So, there's a new movie out on Amazon Prime called The Tomorrow War starring Chris Pratt. It was released on July 2nd, but after a pretty long and busy week, I finally got a chance to check it out, so let's talk about it. This film is about a war taking place 30 years from the present day where humanity is completely wiped out by a race of aliens called White Spikes. Chris Pratt plays an ex-military scientist who gets drafted into the war and has to figure out a way to prevent the end of mankind. Let me just start off by saying that I wasn't overly excited to see this movie. I like Chris Pratt. I think he's a pretty good actor. Loved him in Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, but it usually takes more than an actor to sell me on the premise. The premise of this movie seemed pretty unremarkable from the trailers, I'm not gonna lie. It looked to me like it was World War Z mixed with Edge of Tomorrow and a little bit of Terminator, because it's, like a time travel thing, but it wasn't as cool as any of those movies. That's a very mean way of putting it. But I wanted a new release to review this weekend, and I had no interest whatsoever in seeing the Forever Purge, and since Sebastian is already reviewing Black Widow, I thought, what the hell, let me check this out. After seeing this movie, I feel pretty much exactly the way I did after watching the trailer. The Tomorrow War is a pretty unremarkable sci-fi movie. It has some pretty good acting and some pretty fun action scenes, but it's very, very unspecial in terms of its story. Chris Pratt is easily the best part of this movie. He plays a guy who's not happy with his life and just wants to try to improve his situation, despite the fact that he doesn't realize that he only wants to improve it for himself. And so his arc is really about realizing that his life is actually pretty good right now if he takes a step back and realizes it. That's a pretty good character motivation, and it leads to some of the more emotionally heavy moments in the movie. One scene specifically, towards the middle of the movie, got me choked up. No spoilers, of course, but the way it turned out for some of the characters involved was pretty heartbreaking. Pretty much the only action scene that had any tension whatsoever in this movie was in the first hour of the film, when the group and Chris Pratt are on the streets of Miami looking for this particular item. It definitely had the most suspense in the film, and the way the scene ends just had my blood pumping. I was just like, okay, this is where the movie's really starting to kick off. The problem is the movie becomes kind of predictable after that. The second half of the movie focuses a lot more on Chris Pratt and the way things turn out for him and his family. No spoilers, of course, but while it was good for the characters, it had some pretty effective character scenes, it kind of sacrifices a lot of the pacing and accidentally spoils the end of the movie. Towards the middle of the movie, a character makes a choice that sets up a pretty viable and concrete solution to the problem, but the movie just kind of keeps throwing up roadblocks to build up suspense, and it's like, the more roadblocks are thrown up, the less sense the story makes, and it pretty much kills any suspense going forward because it kind of almost guarantees that this is going to work. With movies about time travel, you have to be careful that you don't accidentally spoil your own ending through context, like in Back to the Future, where the story throws you a curveball by having Doc Brown rip up a letter that could save his life. So Marty is kind of out of time in the third act to save Doc's life, and Doc possibly dooms himself to die at the hands of the Libyans. In the Tomorrow War, the solution to the problem is presented, and it's like, it kind of hinders the story a bit, because why is getting to this objective such a problem? And it pretty much spoils the end of the movie. Therefore, to my mind at least, the finale of this movie has no suspense at all. There was one moment right at the climax of the film where something is about to happen, no spoilers of course, but then Chris Pratt does something that just comes out of nowhere, and it just came across as unintentionally funny. I laughed my ass off because it made absolutely no sense. It was almost like the writers were kind of leaning towards ending the movie one way, but then at the very last millisecond, they were just like, nope, we're going this way. And because of that, it just killed any suspense that had been built up at that point and just became kind of cheesy, really. So in the end, guys, The Tomorrow War had things about it that were entertaining. It definitely succeeds as a character-driven movie, but it has basically no suspense, so therefore it fails as a sci-fi action movie. And for that reason, my rating for The Tomorrow War is 3 out of 10. It's not that I'm disappointed, well, it's just that I can't believe that I had low expectations for this movie to begin with, and I still ended up disappointed. I at least wanted it to be entertaining. If it wasn't anything I was going to remember 10 years from now, I at least would have hoped that I would have had a good time with it, but I kind of didn't. On the bright side, guys, Sebastian is going to be reviewing Black Widow very soon. I'm still doing my Transformers series of reviews. Stay tuned for Dark of the Moon coming soon. And pretty soon, I'll also review something else that I've had my eye on for quite a bit on Netflix. So stay tuned for that, I guess. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and please support our Patreon. We really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Diego for Cinemageddon Reviews, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.